Thank you for listening to Games by Design, our podcast where we share our experiences with video games and discuss what makes them effective. I'm Zach Dunlap, and I'm your host for this episode. Joining me today are Aaron Bone. Say hey, Aaron.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, you said it 3 times. And my brother, Nick Dunlap. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi. You could have said hey if you wanted to.
Hey. All right.
The instructions are kind of vague.
Each week, we start by sharing recent gaming experiences, then hold a discussion about some element of game design that we find interesting. Finally, at the end of each episode, we recommend a game. We recommend a new game for each other and you, the listener, to check out. We play what we want, when we want, and we leave the news and the reviews to other podcasts that are focused on that kind of thing. Once a month, we also have a special episode where we talk about a game that we've all agreed to play. This month's game is Crusader Kings 3. And our discussion will be hosted by yours truly. If you want to share in this experience and join the discussion, feel free to play along with us and put comments on things that we put this podcast on, which is YouTube right now. So we're going to start with our first segment, which is the gaming experience segment. So Nick, share your gaming experiences from recent memory.
Alrighty, well, this is be brief. I was trying to think of one, and I realized I've really only been playing one game this week, and that is Minecraft. And so my experience was we recently got access to these the wings. There's this pair of wings that you can get in the game, which allows you to fly. And we've been doing this Minecraft server for like a year now, almost. It's been a long time, several months. And so we've been like building up this kingdom and stuff. And so we had this glorious moment where, having been introduced to the gift of flight, we all soared over our creations to the music of Christopher Tin's The Dream of Flight from Civilization 6. And that was pretty fantastic.
That was epic.
Soaring over Minecraft. Yeah, it was great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That was so much fun. I was so excited about that. So for my experience today, this last week, the Nick and our other brother Noah and we all got together and we played State of Decay 2 on which is available right now on the Xbox Game Pass thing. And so we hadn't really ever played this game before, so we breezed through the tutorials real quick and then we jump in together to do a co-op thing. And there was a bunch of zombies in this game. It's a zombie survival horror kind of a thing, but it's like an open world survival thing. It's more systemic, and you have to loot things and build stuff, and it's pretty cool actually. There's a lot of really fun ideas in it. But it was not scary and it was not hard. And we were just like mowing down these hordes of zombies and winning everything, and there was no struggle at all. And so for that reason, it was like, well, that's not really, I don't know, like there's this day-night cycle, and the nighttime it looks like it's supposed to feel so scary and dark and dangerous, but like, it's just not. It's the same as the daytime. So we hop in the car and we drive down and we mow over the zombies and run over the zombies, and it was fun. But it was also pretty easy and pretty not thrilling or tense like I was expecting a zombie survival game to be.
Yeah, for sure.
So
is there like a difficulty slider with it, or?
There is, and I decided that, you know what, maybe the difficulty slider thing is something that I should try. And I sit down to do it, and what made the most difference though wasn't the difficulty; it was the fact that I was doing it by myself. It was scary. It was night and day, like in that sense. And I thought it was really cool actually, and I'm actually really like invested in it and terrified by it, and it's fun. It was just interesting. I was going to uninstall the game, but then I switched over to that one, and I guess the added challenge of being alone and not feeling like not feeling like I had help was terrifying.
It turned from a goofy co-op, try to run over the zombies in our sedan to like an actual horror game.
Yeah, where I'm still running over zombies in my sedan, but it's scary now.
But now it's not like your buddies aren't making the doors flap like butterfly wings, and you're not
Yeah. It's not
giggling
as
to yourself the whole time.
And I think that's one of the things about survival games is that the tension and the fear and the challenge of it often comes from that isolation, from that, being detached and kind of scrambling to, figure things out or to do things on your own.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
And it makes sense that a co-op would dilute that a bit. So what you could do is you could start off, on your own. You're scrambling, everything's scary, and then just like, I don't know, every little bit add somebody to the co-op and kind of, then you're building it out.
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
It'll be fun.
That's a cool idea.
Then, I mean, I don't know if the game gets progressively more challenging as, if there's a campaign for it, but if it did, then I don't know, that might have a more the progression might, you can still have it tied to the survival element, but then still get to a point where you can play with people and it doesn't ruin it.
Yeah, you might be right. That'd be a lot of fun, I think. Yeah, because I really liked the idea of playing with people, and like that was like the main draw to me for this game in the first place.
Yeah.
But it just I think that you don't have it kind of removes some of the challenges when you have other players in the game, because like the idea is that you're running a community of survivors and they're like NPCs usually. And they have needs and wants, and then they have like challenges that they go through, and they may not always cooperate, and you have to keep their morale up and stuff like that. But when you're playing with other players, like you don't have those same challenges anymore. All of a sudden, it's just, oh well, we're not in these situations. Our morale is fine. We don't need to eat, and if we do, we just grab some pretzels and eat pretzels while we're playing this zombie game. And like, so I thought that was really interesting. And maybe I just need to play more of it. I don't know, but I'm going to. I'm having a really good time with it, actually.
That's a nice transformation, going from I'm gonna uninstall this game to, oh wow, this is actually really enjoyable.
Yeah, and I ended up playing it way too late one night and not getting enough sleep, and then I had zombie dreams, and it was terrible.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was awesome. Oh man. Well, thank you for sharing your experiences today, guys. I enjoy that segment. So I have there's been something on my mind lately that I've been really dying to talk about, and this is our discussion portion of the podcast for those of you who are listening. I'll bring up a subject and I'll bring up some questions, and then the other guys and I will talk about the implications and our experiences and all kinds of fun stuff about what we think game design is and not to be, and whatnot. So when I played Skyrim for the very first time, Skyrim, the open world RPG Bethesda game, I was really excited to eat the sweet rolls and the pies and the rabbit roasts and things like that. I was just excited about it. There's beautiful 3D food models sitting around, and the sweet rolls look wonderful and things like that. And I was like, oh, awesome! There's all this food in this game. This is really cool. I'm excited to eat it. And I discovered after playing the game for a bit that there was no reason for me ever to eat this food. And that made me really sad, actually, because there's a beautiful food all over the place and there's no reason to eat it. And I know that I could have eaten the food, and sometimes I did. And there's like a minor health healing thing that it does when you do eat certain types of food, but it's minimal and it's easier to heal using magic, which everybody has. And whenever I did eat the food, though, like it felt kind of meaningless, There wasn't any significance to doing it. I wasn't satisfying any hunger because I didn't have any hunger. The character didn't need to eat, so eating was kind of empty, Yeah. What'd you say?
No. It doesn't. I don't have anything to say.
Okay. That was enjoyable. Anyway, so this continues. I had a similar experience in the same game when I realized that I could rent rooms at the various inns and taverns and stuff throughout Skyrim, but had no reason to, because there's no need to sleep in that game. I could pay, the 10 gold or whatever for a room and then get a room to myself with a chest and a bed, and I could, use it to put my stuff down and go to sleep and stuff like that. But there's no mechanical reason to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And that left me feeling similarly kind of disappointed. I was like, what?
Yeah.
That was my feelings. And so the experience of eating and drinking and sleeping and basically feeling like I was an actual part of this fantasy world in that way was so important to me that I ended up downloading a mod for the game that added the added challenges of hunger, thirst, and fatigue, which you have to constantly manage. And I love it. And that's the only way that I will play Skyrim anymore. And eating sweet rolls is now like, it means something, So I'm satisfied. I get what I want.
So when someone steals your sweet roll, you're actually upset.
Yes.
You might go talk to a guard about it or something.
Let me guess. Someone stole your sweet. Actually, yes.
Skyrim stole my sweet roll.
Yeah, that was the problem in the first place. Is that Skyrim stole my sweet roll? That's funny. That'll be the episode subtitle for this one. So,
stole the sweetness from your sweet roll.
Yeah, they did. It's just empty digital nothingness. So, I'm curious. First of all, do you guys have any like off the cuff reactions or things you want to share? And then I have some questions that are kind of connected to this.
I think that's fascinating. I think it kind of shows the need for a connection in a role-playing game to the mechanics and the role-playing itself. Because I was talking about last week about Red Dead Redemption 2, how it has this eating mechanic, but there's not usually a need for it. So it was just some kind of external role-playing thing I could do as part of my experience. It was like, oh, well, there's no reason to sleep in this hotel, but, I'm going to do it anyway because I'm role-playing that my guy's tired and it's been a long mission. And then wake up and it's like, well, I'm going to eat breakfast because that's what you do when you wake up.
But it
wasn't really a reason. And it did kind of get old. And if I ever was in a position where the mechanics, were more taxing, that I did have to concern myself about my other resources, about, my ammunition or like the mission I was doing or something was like of the essence, I, would just forget about it completely. It was kind of more of a sandbox thing, whereas like if there's nothing else challenging me, oh, it's fun to be a cowboy. So I can see how in Skyrim, when you have I don't know, all these other things you're focusing on, the interactions you have, the side quests you have, your weapons and gear, the fact that you can just wait anywhere to make time pass and not have to sleep in a bed, the fact that you can heal yourself without food, it's like, yeah, these things, like, they're a nice touch for the world. Like, it's kind of fun to steal someone's sweet roll and them get mad about it.
I go complain to the guards. And,
or to sleep in a bed somewhere just because, I don't know, I find it kind of satisfying to do after a long, arduous quest or something. But when it's not really connected, like, then you have to kind of create your own game in it, and the game's not really doing it for you, and so you're detaching yourself from what the game actually wants you to do and doing your own thing.
Sorry, I want to make sure you said everything you wanted to say, Aaron. I got something.
Well, I didn't say it well, but I think I said it.
well, I think I understood. And it just kind of an extension of that. Kind of the thought that comes to my mind is that, since the eating in this game in Skyrim, or The Witcher, or any number of open world games where food is like there and you can interact with it. I guess in The Witcher it heals you, so that's a little different. But like Skyrim, let's just stick with Skyrim. It's a luxury, which is not the way food works in real life. You don't just eat food when you want to. You eat when you're hungry.
Okay, we're back. We had some technical problems. Our recording bot, Craig, died apparently. So so we don't know exactly where it was that we lost our train of thought. But we're talking about Skyrim, sweet rolls, the mechanical need to actually eat, drink, sleep, do things in games, and that kind of thing. I think we have that much already. So, but Aaron, you were just asking me about what the mod does specifically that I downloaded, and I answered that it was it gives you added needs to. You have to continually eat, you have to continually drink, and you have to continually be sleeping. And then, and what I was going to say is that actually added another fun. It gave me reason to use another in-game thing that I had not been able to find a reason to use before, which was the wagon guys outside of the cities. You know, I don't know. Aaron, have you played Skyrim?
Yes, yeah, I played Skyrim. So you're basically talking about the like fast travel mechanic in it, or?
Well, I'm talking about but I'm talking specifically about the guys who are in the wagons that will fast travel you from between the major cities and stuff.
Yeah.
There's two different kinds of fast travel in the game, and that's why I never use the wagons, is because it costs money, and you can only go between certain points, or you could go anywhere for free by just fast traveling from the map.
Yeah.
And
okay.
so of course
I couldn't remember if there was a traditional fast travel in that as well. But.
Yeah, you can just teleport to anywhere that you have been from anywhere in the world.
Right. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, you have to discover it first, and then you can. Okay.
But after that point, you have absolutely no reason to use the wagons anymore.
Yeah, and so but I really like the idea of riding in these wagons with these guys and traveling. It's part of the fantasy experience of and take a wagon to the next town over so I can rest on the way or something like that.
Yeah.
Never needed to do that before I downloaded this mod, but then I found out that when you take the wagon, you rest, and like it, and your fatigue goes down. And so I could continue to use the conventional fast travel where I popped around the map and everything like that. But if I went from one end of the map to the other end of the map, I would be exhausted. Or I could take a wagon and arrive fresh wherever I was going and have the energy I needed to go questing and stuff like that.
Wow.
So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. That's a really fun mechanic.
Yeah, I never use the wagons. I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does.
There's no reason to.
Yeah, there's no reason to do it.
So does the mod calculate, like, when you're fast traveling the normal way, what the distance would be if you were just walking there, and then apply that fatigue to you when you get there?
Yeah, I think it's a time triggered thing. Because I think it's more like a time thing. It's
More
not
time
like
than
a
moving,
short-term stamina. It's more like
because time passes in Skyrim, supposedly.
Supposedly.
Right,
Yeah.
Another thing that has no bearing on the rest of the game.
Yeah. So when you fast travel, the time passes, and as the time passes, it makes you more tired. So
Interesting.
So yeah. So I thought that was really interesting, and it was fun because I was like, okay, well, now I have all these quests that I need to do and these missions and plans and goals that I have, but I have to take into account I'm going to be tired, I'm going to be hungry, and I'm going to need to make sure I have water. So I'd have to resupply every time I went into town and rest up every time I went into town. And I tried to plan, and I started falling into a little more of a daily routine than I had in previous Skyrim playthroughs, because it was just better for me to sleep at night and wake up in the morning and go back to work. Like obviously when I say daily routine for Skyrim, that's a little bit generous, because it's more like, okay, well, what dragon am I going to go after today, or who, it's really open-ended. But I started to kind of get a sense more of feeling like I was in the world, experiencing the passage of time a little more realistically, because like you kind of mentioned, Aaron, I don't know if this got cut out or not, but you could just wait and you can go up to 24 hours just standing in place within a matter of seconds, and you just wait until something happens or whatever, which is what I would do before I downloaded this mod.
Because food wasn't a need.
Yeah, because you don't need food, water, or sleep. So
yeah, and so none of these systems are interacting with that. But now that you add a system that interacts with all of that, like all of those systems become more interesting too. Like travel is now more interesting than the food.
Yeah, because I have to think about it now.
Yeah,
I can't just pop back and forth across the map over and over again to accomplish these quests. I have to think about getting to where I'm going.
Yeah,
and then I end up plotting. Oh, okay. Well, there's this thing that's kind of between me and there. Maybe I should travel to there or on foot to there,
Mm-hmm.
and then resupply at these places along the way.
Yeah.
And that I enjoyed that a lot. I know that that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I love logistics. I play with spreadsheets for fun, and I play simulation strategy games, and that's what I do in my free time. So, so that one simple added layer just like forced me to not force me, but gave me the opportunity to finally engage with all those evil fantasy that I wanted to experience, you know? So anyway.
Well, that's great that there's a mod for that, because if you're just somebody who's playing Skyrim just to level up your character, or you're a speedrunner, or, you know, you don't care about those little, you know, minute things in the game, you know, they can still play Skyrim that way. But if you want to be a bit more engaged in the day-to-day and in the survival and in the just living in the world elements, now you have the option. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I love that modding is normal now. I love that it's available. It's beautiful.
See, I'm playing right now. I have Skyrim on the Switch, which the Switch does not have modding capabilities right now.
Depends on how committed you are.
And I already played quite a bit of Skyrim before I got this version, but I'm finding enjoyment out of it because in the Switch version, there's armor and weapons from the Legend of Zelda series in the game.
No. That's right.
So I started this campaign where basically how I designed my character and how I'm playing it is that Link found himself in Tamriel now, and he's kind of an older, more grizzled Link, and you know, he's just kind of thrown into this adventure.
That's so funny.
Where he has to help save him, and the Master Sword's in the game, so it'll be like, okay, the Master Sword is also transported here, and so in order to save things back in Hyrule, first he has to solve the problems in Skyrim.
That's really funny.
But that's just my, you know, I have to create my own headcanon and, you know, make believe with it, which is fun. But, you know, in engaging in every element of the game, it's a little tiring to be doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it's nice when you don't have to imagine all the fun parts. It's nice when, you know, there's a little bit more back and forth between you and the game. And I recognize that, like, you know, Skyrim's not going to give you the Zelda experience, but yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of connected to what we were just talking about, actually, because if you have to do all the imagining in your head to invent the experience that you want to be having with this game, like, I think to a certain extent that's kind of inevitable, because it's a digital world. It's not actually real, so you have to actually do that a little bit. But if it would have been this easy, you know, to add the in my case, the hunger, sleep, and thirst mechanics, and then, you know, provide that experience so I didn't have to imagine it anymore, like, maybe that should have been an optional feature or something like that. You know? But and you can turn it off in the menu. I don't know, whatever. But, like, yeah. Or rely on the mod community to fix your game because you're Bethesda. I will not play a Bethesda game until the unofficial patch comes out. So many people. Yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Bethesda's shortcomings because they're actually not that bad.
I mean, the fact that they're so opening of the modding community and that they welcome it, you know, because a company that doesn't like mods, Nintendo, you know, would do that. But anyway, so do you think that more games should just be survival games or have these survival elements? Or that needs to be a staple in, like, any kind of open world RPG type game?
No. Sorry, that's my short answer.
Do you want to elaborate on your short answer?
Sure. Going back to last week, we talked about the experience, and every game is offering its own experience. So I think it's actually not a great idea to prescribe one catch-all solution, I guess. Like, if your game is about immersing yourself in the day-to-day and the daily grind, yeah. But, like, I don't know. I don't think that every game's about that. I don't think that even Skyrim is necessarily about that, even though it presents like food and sleep as these options. Yeah. But sorry, you were going to say something, Zach.
No, that's okay. I wanted you to be able to have your opinion on that first.
Thanks.
I don't think that every open world game should be. I don't think every game needs more survival elements. It would be really weird if I'm playing, I don't know, Portal or I don't know, whatever. And it was like, oh, you need to take a nap now because you're tired of testing. I don't think that that's really the experience that game is selling. Like Nick was just saying, it was just, I think that it's just something to think about if you're designing a game and you have all these things that you can engage with as a player, but that don't mean anything mechanically. And that's kind of where I think this is all coming from for me. Because the set dressing is nice, but we have the opportunity to actually have functional set dressing, and it's not even set dressing anymore. It's functional mechanical elements of the game
and things.
Well, I think one of the reasons Skyrim has so many mods is because it's this game where if you play for the first time, it's got this great novelty and this huge open world and so much to do, but after 30, 40 some odd hours, it gets pretty old, and the mechanics get really repetitive, but you still got a lot of world that you want to explore and a lot of quests you want to do. And so people are modding the game to increase the replayability, kind of, or it's like, it's this fun world to explore, but the engagement, goes down after so long. But I think if you're playing Skyrim for the first time, I think I don't know, the mechanics that it already has and the story and the world, I think it's pretty engaging for a little while. It seems like that feeling the need for, I don't know, these additional mechanics comes after you've already spent a long time in the game. I don't know. Maybe that's just my thought, but
I don't know. I when I played Skyrim initially, I think for me, I was just excited. I mean, when I played Skyrim initially, it was like one of the first of its type that I'd played, and so I was excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
But having played more games and having more experience and knowing what I like better, having my own tastes and stuff, when I start a game and it presents me with things like, oh, look at this food and these inns and stuff like that, and then doesn't make me need to interact with them, I noticed that pretty straight way. I don't know that it's just a matter of time. And that's just those are my preferences.
The only reason I'm thinking about that versus the beginning of the game is because I think sometimes a game needs to strike a balance of having interesting and engaging systems in the game, but then also not overwhelming the player with too much at once. And so if they haven't played Skyrim and they're already figuring out how the weapons work, how the armor works, how the quests work, how the world works. My first 3 hours of Skyrim, I didn't know how to access the map because, I'm a casual newbie player right now, but then it was, practically handicapped. But anyway, so if you have, all these other systems the game's trying to explain, and then, adding another complex system on top of that, I can see that also, can frustrate players by making them focus on too much or adding too much. I don't know. There's even something like with The Witcher. I almost wish that some of its systems were doled out a little bit more periodically, because there was a lot at once, and there were some things I didn't even understand or get to until near the end of the game.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean completely. Yeah. No, I think accessibility is kind of the name of the game with Skyrim, especially when compared to its previous iterations. Morrowind, Oblivion, Daggerfall, and Arena. And I think you're right. I think that's why they did that. I think they wanted it to be easier for people to get into, so that more people, and I think that they were successful. I think that more people played Skyrim than had played any of the previous games. It looked better, it played smoother, and it was easier to understand. So but I have a couple of more questions on this subject of um, having things that you can engage with, but that you don't need to engage with, kind of a thing. So, Aaron, you've already talked a little bit about your experience with like Red Dead 2 and everything, but and so you already kind of answered this question a bit. But if you have more, I'd love to hear it. And same with you, Nick. But when have you played a game and done something that it didn't require you to do?
Anyway, I ended up basically just role playing anytime it got dark. Which, in Breath of the Wild, things do get more dangerous at night. You have the skeletons and things come out, and danger of a blood moon where everything resurrects to come after you. That I would have a camp for the night at some point, during the day. Or if I was, near his home, go back to the home and have it. And I don't know, that didn't need to do it. Game didn't, I don't think, wanted me to do it, but.
That's cool. And did you so why did you do it then?
And I think it was kind of similar to Skyrim. I had already beaten the game. I'm playing it on master mode now, and I just wanted an additional element that I wanted to engage more with the world, engage more with the character, and also challenge myself a little bit. I was like, oh, it'd be really easy to just fast travel everywhere and not really worry about this stuff. But I don't know. It's like, everyone complains about rain in that game. It's like, oh, well, when it rains and you can't climb, it's like, well, then you find like a little outcropping of rock, or you find like a little shelter, you build a fire, and then you wait for the rain to go away. And I don't know. It kind of, it just kind of added a new dimension. And as I was talking about with Red Dead, I don't know, when it's a role-playing game, I like the role play. Like oftentimes I focus on how my character looks and if it fits with what they're doing and if it makes sense. Another game I'm playing right now connected to Zelda, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, you have a ton of playable characters, for each mission, and some characters are stronger than others, and have different stats and benefits. But when it's a story mission, all I'm thinking about is like, okay, this is a story. Who makes sense to be here in this situation,
That's funny.
So I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm weird and I just like to have this, which is weird because I've been kind of on the devil's advocate for this a lot. But just this kind of fidelity with the immersion of the game and with the world and with even to the little details. Like, I don't know. It's fun for me.
No, that's great.
Yeah, I agree. If you're weird, then I am too, because I do the same thing.
No, we're all weird.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So, did you want to share some
Sure.
experience?
I mean, I don't know that I can point to anything specifically, but like I'll frequently change outfits in games to match an occasion better. If I'm going to a party in The Witcher, I will wear nice clothes instead of armor, even if I don't have to. Or I'll take my armor off to go swimming. Though it makes no difference if I'm wearing plate mail in the water. Or something I did. This is something I actually do frequently. I will frequently talk to NPCs after their dialogue has been exhausted. I'll go back and talk to them just to feel like I have a relationship with these characters. So like in Outer Wilds, for instance, you've got your home planet where you start out. And I would frequently, before I headed off into space, just talk to everybody, talk to my favorite characters, just to feel like I had a connection or a relationship. The dialogue is exactly the same every time.
Yeah.
But, that's something I do frequently. Just talk to characters to see how they're doing, which, they're doing the same. They always say the exact same thing, but I really like to feel like I have some kind of connection to them. So I really like doing that.
That's really interesting. Do you find that satisfying then?
I'd find it more satisfying. I don't know. Yes, I do. Short answer, yeah. I like it. I'd still do it. And I'd enjoy feeling like telling little stories in my head of like what my relationship is with whatever this character is.
Right, yeah.
Or whatever. And feeling like I'm more grounded in the world and like my character is an actual person with relationships and things like that. I find satisfaction in that. Yeah.
You said you might find it more satisfying.
Yeah.
You started saying something else there.
don't want to like. I recognize it's not what every game's about.
Yeah.
But I always appreciate it when there's more of what I like. So I think, but I think it's a dangerous rabbit hole to go down. Like, well, yeah, I wish there was more of everything I liked. I wish there was always something new that somebody would say.
Yeah.
When I talk to them, or I wish there was, like, I wish there was always more. But I recognize that not every game can do that or is about that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it's a thing, though. Do we want the games to do that for us, to kind of almost take away that personal creativity we're giving the games?
Really
instead of something that we're choosing to do and choosing to engage with and kind of make our own to just be part of the formula and the engine itself?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question. Holy cow. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Because like we're relying on our imagination to fill in what's not happening mechanically.
Yeah.
Right? And like you're asking, do we want to
substitute
mechanics for the imagination, or do we want mechanics so that we are not doing the heavy lifting like you were talking about?
Yeah.
Well, and we're all doing it because we want to do it, because it's the way that we personally engage with the game. It's the way that, we're finding the most fulfillment out of it. If it just became another system, and everything, is just a game telling us to do it. Last time we talked about player agency a little bit, and, I think that takes away some of that it could be something that we start resisting, that it's like, hey, I go to sleep when I want to go to sleep. Don't tell me to go to sleep, Gabe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's kind of fun to have that freedom. And, sometimes it's with games that, maybe aren't as fleshed out as they could be. Like, when we were playing Sea of Thieves, and it's like, there's not much to do in this game.
So
but it was super fun to just, have this sandbox that we can just kind of play how we want and create our own stories and our own narrative and our own, ideas about these characters. That I wonder if it just became this standard thing that a lot of games. I don't know, because at the same time, it is nice to have that interaction, but I just wonder if, like, the game is now telling me that this is how I'm supposed to be playing, or this is what I need to do, if it would become tedious.
I have a thought on that. I don't know. Night in the Woods. I love. I had so much fun playing that game, and I found it ridiculously compelling. And in a lot of ways, that game's just about talking to people and, doing pretty mundane things. But I also like. I felt more connected with characters that every time I talked to them, it was a new interaction. I really loved those characters more than I like characters in games where I have to make it up in my brain, I think. And so, like, the characters in Night in the Woods really meant something to me. You don't have to talk to everybody all the time in that game. And so that's something that was meaningful. It wasn't like the game was telling me this is the only way to play, but it had an option. It was an avenue. It was like, hey, if you want to play this way, you can. There's content here for you. And so I didn't feel like I was necessarily being incentivized to. I talked to everybody in that game because I wanted to. And I didn't feel like I had to, but I wanted to. And so, and I like that more. I like that more than having to make it up, because, like, I get to be surprised, and, like, I get to have conversations with, my mom in game, and, like, learn things about her, and, like, get to know her better, and have an actual, like, somebody who's not me talking back to me, like, have I can be surprised, which is something I really enjoy. There can be unexpected things that happen, and I can feel like I'm actually getting to know somebody and building a relationship instead of pretending I have a relationship, actually feeling like there's a little bit of something there. So I don't think that's every game, but Night in the Woods is a game that does that, and I like that. And it's some of the most fun I've had in a game lately.
That's really cool. I like that a lot, and I think I actually agree with you. And I think that this something noteworthy here is that I don't think A Night in the Woods would be improved if you had a food meter that you had to keep filling up every few minutes. I don't think that that's what that game is about.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, it's very specifically about talking to people and having
Mm-hmm.
interactions and relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it focuses on that and does
Mm-hmm.
that whole thing. I think that this whole subject for me is actually, it's funny that we talked about this last week, because I think in my mind, this is all connected to that point that came up last time when we were talking about, we do want freedom to act. At least that's what I was saying. I want the freedom to make choices, but I do not want to have no consequences for those choices. I really, really want consequences. So I like the freedom to make decisions and go about my life in whatever game I'm playing in whatever way that I want to play it. But if I can get away with anything, including not eating, not sleeping, depending on what the focus of the game is, because, you know, like I said, I don't think that that specific need needs to be in every single game. But those are the consequences. And, you know, if you have a game where there's food and beds and things like that, and maybe you should think about role playing and being in the daily routine of somebody in this world where food and beds exist, and other people, NPCs, need food and beds. Then maybe that's one of the real life consequences that should be included in the game. And I'm not saying that this is the way Skyrim should have been made. It's just something that I think, I don't know, maybe. But in real life, you can make the choice. I don't want to sleep. I don't want to eat. But you do not get to choose how you feel when you do not eat and you do not sleep. You feel tired and you feel hungry and you feel thirsty when you don't drink. And I really enjoy that. And like I said, I wish I could use other examples a little more effectively here, because I'm just picking up those three again. And I want to make it really clear that I don't think that those specific needs need to be in every single game. But anyway, in some way, I think those two things are connected. I hope that makes sense. At least, hopefully, it's thought-provoking.
Certainly.
No, I think it's interesting where in these instances where we can just kind of use the world and role play how we want, we have the freedom to make the choice, but we aren't able to really role play the consequences either.
Yeah.
You know, that it's like, oh, well, I can pretend like my character, you know, needs to eat and sleep, but if I'm in a situation where I'm not, you know, able to do that, like I can't pretend that, I mean, I don't know, jump off a cliff if, you know.
Oh, I should be dead right now, so I better kill myself.
Yeah,
I have to enforce the consequences for my
I
own
feel like there'd
choices.
always be something, you know, the mechanics in the game would come back or something would break that head immersion that you have. And then you kind of realize that there's not really any consequence in what you're doing. You know, you could be playing The Witcher 3 and be like, okay, Geralt's going to have something for breakfast every morning. You know, he's going to like have his dinner. But then when you're in the middle of a fight and you're just, you know, chowing down food to heal, you know, it kind of breaks that distant connect. Like eventually the consequences are more on the design of the game itself and not what you're choosing to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like getting to make choices.
I love making choices.
And I don't like having to choose my own consequences.
Yeah, or trying to make them happen to yourself.
Yeah. That's how I feel.
That's really interesting. This is fun. I love these conversations because they allow me to kind of refine what I think and then ultimately come to some kind of conclusion about what I believe a little bit more. And I think that kind of where I'm sitting right now on this particular subject is that this is fun because this is playing off of last week's episode too.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's really cool. What I think where I'm at right now is I want the freedom to make choices, and as many choices as the game is able to give me, you know, reasonably, because I know there's finite things in game design. That's totally understandable. But I want the freedom to make choices. I also want to experience the consequences of my choices. And I don't know that all games allow me to do that as much, and maybe that would be more meaningful to me in many of the games I play if that was played up more. So.
Yeah. Man, That's some food for thought.
That is some food for thought. And I recognize I've been talking a lot. I hope I haven't talked too much because I'm supposed to be asking questions. But then I got excited and I wanted to share my thoughts about it. So
No, this is great. And you're right. As we have these discussions, we refine, what we've thought. I was actually thinking about last week when I was mentioning how, I was kind of frustrated with the eating mechanic in Red Dead Redemption. But like thinking back on it and thinking of our discussions, like, no, I actually kind of like it because I was role playing doing it anyway. It does kind of have some consequence with it if you choose to not eat for several days. And I think it was kind of a similar thing where it's just like it seemed like a lot of systems at once to learn, but once you figure it out, it does add more depth and quality to the experience.
Yeah. I don't think consequences needs to mean punishment or like bad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even if that's jumping back to Night in the Woods, since we're all kind of just like, this is kind of fun. We're like, oh, this is how this relates to everything I've been talking about so far. And it's kind of fun because it's kind of bring it all full circle. But like with Night in the Woods, the consequence for talking to somebody is that I get to learn this thing about them, maybe. And maybe that's as simple as the consequence is, but there is a consequence. There is something. There is something, that would have been different if I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
So there's some change, or I learned something, or I have an experience or something like that wouldn't have been there if I hadn't done that. So I think the consequences can be tiny. I don't think consequences necessarily needs to mean that you starve or you get penalized in some way, but like,
it's almost like you were saying earlier, just even as simple as like an NPC having a different line of dialogue or having reacting to something. I actually really enjoyed playing Assassin's Creed 2, just kind of climbing around Florence, and the NPCs who'd pass by would be like, what is that guy doing? He's going to break his neck. Or one of my favorite ones, I'm parkouring across the rooftops and this guy's like, I should start thinking about exercising.
Oh, that's good.
That's delightful. I love that.
It's great. Just like the reaction to what you're doing. Almost. You want the game to respond to what you're giving it.
Yeah, you just want it to acknowledge you and to acknowledge that you've made a choice and like to that's so cool.
I love that. That's really interesting.
That gets me excited.
Now I think we should have an episode about NPC chatter.
Oh man,
because I got so many favorites from like The Witcher and Skyrim and the Assassin's Creed games. And oh man,
that would be fun. A special episode where it's just like listing out, I don't know, top 10 best NPC chatter.
Maybe we can try to extract a principle, like what makes good NPC chatter. I wonder if we've touched on it already, though. Is like it recognizes what you're doing and there's consequences for choices.
Maybe.
Of course, you get some great stuff in The Witcher, like this guy just talking about how he's not a leper anymore and so he can't make money, which has nothing to do with you and it's just beautiful.
I love the prostitutes in that game. And not for the reason that people usually love prostitutes. I just love the things they say. They're so funny. Anyway, back to we probably should wrap up this discussion, but I really enjoyed this insight that everyone's brought to the table. Thank you guys.
I agree.
Yeah,
thanks.
So for our final segment today, it's think of a good game. And we're going to share game recommendations with each other and with you, the listener, and you can decide whether you want to play those games. So, but we recommend it. That's the whole point. So why don't we start with Nick this time? Did you go first last time?
I don't remember, but I can go.
Go ahead, share a game.
Okay. There's one that I played last year at the end of the year. Westerado, Double Barreled. By Ostrich Banditos, is a charming Western whodunit with a systemically generated bad guy that you have to hunt down and figure out clues to find. And it's a lot of fun. It's short. It's pretty replayable. It's just fun. It's a cute little Western pixely game where you go around and try to find the person who killed your parents or uncle or something like that. I don't actually remember.
I don't remember either, but I agree. I love that one. That's so fun.
It's a good time. So that's a Westerado double-barreled.
Westerado. Where did you play that game? Where did you find it?
I got it on Steam. It was brought up in a YouTube video. I really like Mark Brown, Game Maker's Toolkit. And he talked about it and how it has these really cool emergent systemic stories that kind of, it's different every time.
Nice.
But hey, I want to try that out. So I bought it. It was on sale. It's generally pretty inexpensive. So it's a good time. It's certainly unique. I haven't had the same experience with that game that I have with many others. So it's a good one. Fun.
It's a good time. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that one.
It's also got co-op. So
yeah, local co-op.
Yeah, local co-op.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Westerado. Aaron, any games that you have thought of that are good?
Yes. So I'm going to recommend a game. I've talked about this game before in game experiences, but it's a game I recently played through. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, I think, is an incredible game. The way that it builds this character and the way that you are almost like an observer of this game, even as you're playing, and how the puzzles and the action fold into the narrative. It's just incredible. I mean, I really don't want to say too much about the game because I think it's great just going in fresh and experiencing.
Yeah.
But the quality of the voice acting, and then how it's still unique and how it's still, I don't know. The game has impacted me in so many ways and so many different times that just stay with me.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. This was a lot of fun. I had a really good time. Thank you for listening to my complaints about sweet rolls in Skyrim and stuff like that. But we're going to be. What's next week? Is next week your turn, Nick?
Me.
Next week is Nick's turn to host our podcast, and he'll have a surprise discussion topic that the three of us will discuss. And then the week after that, right, is Crusader Kings 3. We're going to have a special episode all about Crusader Kings 3, which we have been playing together.
And you can see on YouTube.
You can watch on our YouTube channel, which you know about if you're listening to this podcast in 2020. So, so yeah, check it out, and we'll be doing those next time. But thank you guys for the discussion. I had a really good time.
Oh, me too.
I always have a good time. So we're gonna wrap it up here, but have a safe holiday season. Blah 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 blah
Blah blah blah
blah blah blah blah blah
blah blah bye.
blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah.